You're listening to Trailblazers.fm, an interview-styled podcast that delves deep into bold conversations with successful Black entrepreneurs and leaders. Join us weekly to learn actionable strategies, valuable tactics, and innovative tools that you can put to use immediately on your journey to blazing your trail. And now, here's your host, my husband, Stephen A. Hart.
Hello and happy Friday to you. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. My name is Stephen A. Hart. I'm the host of Trailblazers.fm. If this is your first time joining one of our live streams, thank you so very much. If you've been part of our Blazer Nation community for the past 5+ years, I'm especially grateful for your continued support. So listen, today I am joined by one of our own Blazer Nation elites who's always here hanging with us on Fridays and is an amazing entrepreneur and professional, Mr. Sheldon Paul. Sheldon, welcome, my brother. Oh, actually, I still have you on mute, Sheldon. Here we
That's
go.
right. Good morning, Stephen. Good morning, Blazer Nation.
Good.
Thank you for having me, guys.
Yeah, man. How you doing this morning?
It's good. It's good. Good. I mean, thank God we're able to get up and see another morning. So that's good.
Amen. That's right, man. That's right. So, we're going international today. Sheldon's down in Trinidad.
Yes.
Born and raised?
Born and raised in Trinidad.
Yeah. So, where we start these conversations off. We always, anchor ourselves from a place of gratitude. And I wanted to ask you, what's an unexpected blessing that you're most grateful for in your life right now?
Unexpected blessings. There are many blessings, but unexpected blessings. I would have to say the support of the people around me. And you use the term unexpected. It's not that I didn't expect the support, but sometimes when things get rough, when things get tough, not everybody pulls together. But I am thankful that the people in my circle, my wife, my daughter, my family, all these guys continue to pour their love and support, to ensure that we keep moving forward. So I'm grateful for that.
I love it. And we're going to talk a good bit about the business you've been building, BLU Networks, in just a bit. But wanted to take you back for a bit. Where in Trinidad are you?
Well, I'm presently in Chaguanas, which is like central Trinidad, but I was born and raised in Laventille, Chumacac, Laventille, which is north Trinidad.
Got it. Growing up, I remember growing up in Jamaica, there is so much that, you and I are getting into that second quarter of living now, right? So, I think back to growing up where, we didn't have that much TV back then. There was no such thing as cable, right? So
no.
We were outside, playing all the time.
Yeah, pitching marbles.
Yeah. What thoughts do you have of growing up in Trinidad that you miss, that are you don't really see maybe your daughter engaged in right now?
But a lot of thoughts, exactly. Actually, well, growing up in Laventille, for me, Laventille is north of Trinidad. It's a lot of greenery.
Yeah.
It's a lot of outdoor. For me, I grew up outdoors, and I always remember leaving home, either going to play basketball, football, pitching marbles, flying kite, riding trolleys in the dirt, and these things. And when you look at, I miss those things. And sometimes I try to introduce those things to my daughter. And just to see her reaction, ma'am, and she, she's 10 now. So some of those things, when we speak about those things, she's like, Daddy, really? The concepts are so different. But those are some of the things I miss. I miss every minute of the day we could have found to go outside. We would have gone outside. And it's not about how hot the sun is. It's not about if rain is falling. We're outside, we're outside. And those are some of the things that I miss, and some of the things I try to get my daughter to keep, I try to keep with her right now.
Yes. So at what point, I also have a 10-year-old. We were talking about this before we started, and Sheldon showcasing some of his daughter's amazing artwork there behind him, which I love. and we were reasoning about both our daughters being real artistic, right? What growing up, at what point did you start to realize you kind of had a brain for tinkering with things, and maybe the foundations of what you're leaning to with your networking and based mindset, right?
That's a funny question, Stephen, because my wife and I talk about it all the time, and she laughs at it because growing up, even I would say before teenage years, I always used to take things, little toy cars, little electronic stuff, take out the motors, play with the positive and negatives, create fun. My room in Laventille, I had many small motors with clothespins at the end of it, just running fans. And I always like to find what makes things work. So that for me started, I would say 12, 13 or so. And that followed me into secondary school, where I got into more technical stuff. My favorite subject in secondary school was technical drawing. And more so engineering drawing, putting the bolts and nuts together and understanding how these things come together and being able to represent those things in an actual engineering drawing. So I saw my shift to technical stuff, not necessarily networking, but technical thoughts and technical areas early on in life. I would say around 12, 13.
Wow. So you progressed through. Was that something that you talked about doing a technical drawing? Were you drawn more to the networking side or engineering, or where did your schooling end up guiding you?
Well, okay, so from secondary school, leaving secondary school, I wanted to be an architect. So my engineering drawing and my love for technical drawing in itself, that pushed me out of school wanting to be an architect. And because of the transition from traditional engineering drawing and on paper to, at that point, AutoCAD, I knew I had to get into technology to be any sort of force within the architect space at that point. So I went to learn technology, and the first thing I was advised to learn was do computer literacy. So I spent some time doing computer literacy, the Microsoft products and so on, but I still wanted to be an architect, right? And, to be an architect, there was some, a degree of investment required and so on. And, being very transparent, my mom, I grew up with my mom mostly. So my mom was a cook, right? My mom was a cook for, the police service at that point in time. She's a civilian, but she was a cook. And she tried her best to put my sister and I through school, right? I have a twin sister, so my sister and I were the last two, right, through school. And when we left school, we knew, although she was trying, the investment required to further education is something that we would have had to, we have to do.
Right.
So the first order of business was to get a job to be able to further my studies. And I did just that. My first job had nothing to do with technology. It had to do with accounts. But it was a job and a stepping stone to put me where I needed to be. Still wanting to be an architect at that point, right? So, there was a series of transitions there, right? And then I moved into After working in that first job as an account assistant, I actually fell into the computer department at that company. And that is where I realized that this transition from being an architect was real. I saw something that I loved, which is making networks work, right? That is where my love for networking started at my first job about 2 years in. Yeah.
Wow. So how long did you, and kind of walk us through, right? Because you're now at the helm of your company with BLU Networks, but what happened between coming into networking and then, bring us to the present point?
Okay, so coming into networking, so after working in my first job for 5 years, I realized that I wanted to be part of this, what we call disruption, right? Because there are different sides of technology. There's the side of technology that you see all the time, the bells and the whistles, the applications, but there's the side of technology that is actually required for everything else to be functional, which is the infrastructure.
Yes.
That is where I wanted to focus. So leaving my first job 5 years in, I entered the banking sector in technology, where I worked for 10 years. Within the first 2 years of being in the banking technology, I would have moved into engineering and networking, where I started to see a different side of this space that I really wanted to get in. I rubbed shoulders with international engineers. I traveled the world learning new things and working with people who were responsible for, imagine walking through a metropolitan city in the US and rubbing shoulders with the guy that would have been responsible for designing that network in that 50-story building. Yeah. I wanted to be one of those guys. I wanted to walk through parts of the world and tell my child, at that point, we didn't have a child yet, but tell my child, Daddy built that. So I knew I wanted to be part of something bigger. And networking for me started then. And I pushed it, worked in the bank 10 years, being responsible for not just design, but design and deployment of regional networks throughout the English-speaking and Spanish-speaking Caribbean.
Yeah.
After the bank, I went into another financial institution responsible for similar roles, but then while in the bank, there was an international company, a manufacturer that was looking at me, but they could not hire me because of agreements with the bank.
Right.
As soon as I left that company, I was offered a job and I flew to Miami to train. I took my wife, flew to Miami to train, and I was now part of an international engineering organization where the exposure just multiplied, right? I worked for Nortel Telecom and, gaining that exposure, it just further solidified my thoughts of, at some point, I want to do this for us.
Right.
I want to bring all these solutions, address all these challenges that we're addressing now globally. I want to be able to do that for us. I want to build something like this. All right. Fast forward a few organizations after, then, Blue was born. Blue Networks was born.
I love it. And so today you're the founder and do we say CEO? How do you title yourself?
Titles honestly have been something that I've never been too concerned about.
Right.
Blue Networks, I am the owner.
Yes.
My wife is also an owner.
Yes.
Right. I am responsible for all the engineering and solutions that come out of the organization. My wife is the other director. She's responsible for paying all the bills, managing all suppliers, and making sure everybody gets paid.
Big up Mrs. Paul.
Yes. So, so it's run by two people.
Yes.
Right. I have a wonderful team of engineers and support staff around me, and the organization continues to grow. So titles for me, I can work anywhere in the organization. It's not about who's
you probably end up right?
Yeah. So, So that's who I am right now.
So, and how long has Blue been in existence?
So
At this
Blue
point?
this year will be 10 years. So June this year will be
Wow.
10 years. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I'm sure in that season, you know, a lot has happened, but
Yeah.
more recently, right?
Oh yeah.
We've had the global pandemic.
Oh yes.
How has things been, you know, or how has things changed by way of the pandemic in terms of the way you're having to operate at this point?
Okay, that's a very common question. I would answer it two ways. There has been change, right? But the change itself occurred at what we consider two areas of our business. First of all, the way we operate, meaning our standard operating procedure, as in Blue, we are all mobile. Yes, we
Mhm.
have a physical office. We
Yeah.
have an office because we have training gear, we have demo equipment, we have things that we need to go to the office and do from time to time to make sure we stay abreast,
Right.
right? And to be very frank, there was a point in time when society considered entrepreneurs who do not have physical spaces like offices. They would have considered them not formal.
Right.
So we went ahead and we got an office, especially since the customers you were dealing with were a lot of big customers.
Right.
But as an organization, we were always able to work from anywhere. We work in many different areas in the Caribbean, and we don't have to be physically in that office. So I'm saying all of that to say that when the pandemic hit and we were ordered to close doors as an organization, that did not affect us in terms of the way we operated as a company, right?
You're
So
able to transition
we were
smoothly.
able to transition immediately. But having said that, the focus that we placed on certain areas of the organization that had to shift to ensure that we stayed relevant and we stayed successful. For
Right.
example, our customers now, they were having a totally different experience. Their focus shifted from, okay, this is my revenue target, to, okay, how am I going to make this work? How am I going to survive? There was a state of panic with many of our customers. So
Yeah.
we decided as an organization, we met immediately. We said, guys, we do not want to be part of the conversation where our doors are going to close, etc. We don't want to have that conversation.
Right.
What we are going to focus on, let's look at our existing customer base and add value to those people who need it most now. So we had, to be very honest, Stephen, we had projects on the table that we were running down to close. As an organization, we decided to put those on hold.
Wow.
And focus on the clients that needed to make that transition. Because at the end of the day, right now, in a pandemic, a lot of new projects would have been, halted anyway.
Right.
We saw more value in taking the time and reshuffling our resources to ensure that we dealt with the panic.
So you took
Provided the
care
right.
of what you had already instead of
Yes,
looking out.
yes,
That's
yes. We took our
such a
revenue hit.
gem, Sheldon. Let me pause right there, man, and commend you for that. Right. A lots of people, you know, have been losing sleep and stressed, and you know, we're all filled with anxiety, business or not.
Correct.
But you know, that's a wise word right there, worth pausing on and commending you for, because I'm sure you built a lasting, you know, an indelible mark you're with Blue Networks, helping your customers, your existing base,
Yeah.
to get through this challenging period. And I would, you know, venture to say you're probably not going to lose that core. You've established that core and probably, you know, kept them as long as they can keep themselves in business. You've probably kept customers for life.
Yes, that's the goal. Yes. All right.
So let me kind of break. I mean, you know, this season has been probably one of the deeper valleys for many business owners.
Yeah.
I don't know if this has been kind of your most challenging valley. Running business, you know, we always hitting up against different obstacles and challenges and detours. Talk to me about, you know, a detour or a challenge, whether it's COVID or not, that really challenged Blue? 10 years in, I mean, you've probably had to pivot, here and there.
We did.
Have you had one of those experiences where you had an ugly cry, and I mean, you're like, man, this might be it? Well,
I would say, Stephen, as an entrepreneur, I don't want to use the word panic, but having, and I think you may understand this, having built something from the ground up.
It's your baby.
Yes, that, so you're getting it. Nobody can put themselves in my shoes and understand the risks that we see as business owners.
Right.
No, at least this is my belief. You only understand when you're in it. Mm-hmm. So when these things happen, pandemic, one example, when these things happen, immediately, and it's not about thinking negative, immediately we start to think about, okay, what's next? What do we need to do to make sure we stay relevant? Right. And so on. So for me, looking at the pandemic unfold, especially within the first 2 to 3 months, and I don't want to use the word uncertainty, but there were concerns floating around in my head, not whether or not we would stay in business. No. That wasn't the concern. There were concerns about what do we need to switch to stay relevant, right? And those things actually floated around there for a few months until we settled and saw the environment starting to point in a particular direction, right? So within the 10 years and so on, the pandemic and that first 3 to 4 months was very unsettling. Me, at least for me, very unsettling, because, and this is something I would try very hard not to bring to the organization or the rest of the team members, because I don't want them to feel unsettled. Let me handle that, right? But we found our rhythm. We saw what was going on. We kept our focus, and we came out of that. At least me personally came out of that uncertainty in my mind with respect to where should we focus within about the first four months of the pandemic. So that was a challenging time.
Yeah.
Right. One of the other biggest challenges that I have had, this is me personally, running Blue, was coming from an engineering background, managing large projects, managing huge network deployments and so on. 2 years into running Blue, I now had to transition to managing people. And not just manage people, Stephen, manage people and allow people to make decisions that can make a difference with respect to the organization's future.
So you're having to learn how to support, but not necessarily direct.
Yes, and I have to learn to let go and have these people that are trained and that we're confident in, but I'm so accustomed controlling all the cards, I'm the one building, I'm the one executing. I literally had to work on that. And to be very honest, my team members then and now helped me work on that.
Yeah.
And I was very honest with them and tell them, guys, this is not a space that I'm normally comfortable in. Yeah. And they will come to the table. Don't worry, Sheldon, we got this. And so that initially was a huge challenge for me, making that transition, but it's gotten a lot better now.
Yeah, I love that you're vocal about that too. And that you communicated with your team and said, hey, this is kind of my weak area, right? I'm gonna hold on, but we can't get a grip on anything new if we have a clenched fist, right?
Correct.
Able to have that open, right? I want to circle back because you touched on something here, and I'm wondering, how do you now communicate the importance of this infrastructure that you talked about earlier? How do you communicate the importance of telecommunication infrastructures to this now transitioning, this digital transformation that's happening right now?
Okay, first of all, digital transformation, or DX as we call it in the environment now.
That's a new term for me, Sheldon.
Yeah. You know, in technology we have acronyms for everything. So DX,
absolutely, yeah.
DX, digital transformation. That is not something that we as an organization traditionally focused on. And I want to make that, I need to clear that up, because digital transformation speaks to changing the processes and the technology within your business to change from a manual state to a fully digital state where you can actually run your business digitally. That's the summary version. So when you go into things like that, normally the focus, being very frank, Stephen, normally the focus is on the frills, the pretty stuff, the applications. You know, I need to digitize this. Let's buy this application so I can computerize this. Let's put this in the cloud, etc. The focus for many companies since the pandemic. Now, digital transformation has been around for umpteen years, since my first degree. Right? It's just been accelerated now and put to the rest of the world as a no choice type scenario. Right? So the pressures are different. But with that pressure came many decisions made by organizations that were short-sighted, and not because they wanted to. In many situations, they just didn't have the right knowledge. So the focus was on the technology rather than the strategy. Take, for instance, you need to ensure that your organization can support all of your users from home. So that would have forced a transition from desktops to laptops.
Yeah.
Right? Fast forward to a year into the pandemic, you have an increase in ransomware, an increase in cyber attacks. And many of those attacks could be tied back to those mobile devices that are not being managed, that are not being connected to your network securely. But from the organization's perspective, I have transitioned because I've given all my users laptops and they can connect. But nowhere, and this is just an example, nowhere within that thought process was the infrastructure component. How are we connecting those devices securely? How are we ensuring visibility of those devices? How are we managing those devices? Right? So that's just an example of a lot of organizations focused on survival, which is okay. They have to. Digital transformation in many situations, at least in our view, has been approached from a technology standpoint rather than a strategic standpoint. So our view is that if you approach DX or digital transformation strategically or holistically, you will take into consideration every last component that is required to support that transformation, which must include infrastructure components, Stephen.
Yeah. So Sheldon, I hear you saying this, and this is all valuable input, right? I work in cybersecurity, so I get that, and I see the problem arise since the pandemic. Where, as you touched on, everybody is remote, everybody's working from home, and now you have this transition from having to protect one hub to protecting everywhere, your employees are and your devices live. But of course, if I'm a startup, if I'm a small business in a pandemic, I am just trying to keep the lights on. Right?
Correct.
How do you make an argument for them prioritizing that kind of cost and that kind of resource to making sure that infrastructure is in place?
Very valid question, Stephen. And the thing is, in all fairness to the smaller businesses as well. So when you're approaching digital transformation, what we also have to consider is the organization and the stage that organization is in.
Right.
Many solutions for small businesses take into consideration infrastructure components, connectivity, secure connectivity, and so on.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say it's not about cost. It's about regardless of the size of organization, it's about the organization approaching it holistically. Take, for instance, you have a small organization, 10, 15 people. right? Many organizations that are small or startups, they have already transitioned to a serious degree. Many of them are already cloud-based.
Right.
Many of them are using mobile devices. Many of them are using Wi-Fi technology. And there's normally less manual or paper-based than an organization that has been in business 20 years ago. So to be fair to them, their level of transformation may be less, right? But to answer your question, how do I get a startup to prioritize and look at these costs? All we want them to do is look at what their needs are holistically, and then work with someone who understand those needs, and you can actually phase that transition. Many times you don't ever have to go out and spend all your money at any point in time, right? There are normally options to phase it. But what is missing, Stephen, regardless of the size of the organization, what is missing is that holistic look at your environment and the design required to support your goals.
Yeah. I'm gonna, again, we're talking with Sheldon Paul. If you're just joining us, he is the owner of Blue Networks Consultancy. I'm gonna just share his website here for everyone. Definitely, if you are a business owner, an entrepreneur, and you have not yet made sure that you are taking care of your network and the security of your infrastructure, and all the amazing things that his business works on with their customer base, you absolutely should. This is a conversation worth its weight. So, Sheldon, what advice do you give to owners about the network infrastructure component?
All right. I would recommend a few things for business owners. I would recommend that.
And maybe let's do this. Let me pause you there. For those who probably don't get what network,
I was just about
component is, right? Yeah.
All right. So Blue Networks, Stephen, and Blazer Nation, Blue Networks is a telecommunications integration organization. What does that mean? I hear you asking that question. All right. Telecom integration, right? We are an organization that will work with you as a company. We will listen to what you want to achieve as a business, and we will put the right telecommunication solution in front of you, understanding what is required. Integration there is the important term, guys. We are not a company that comes in and implements boxes. Implementation is totally different to integration. As a matter of fact, we have a blog article that speaks entirely about the difference between implementation and integration. What businesses need are strong integrators. We will implement a solution into your organization and ensure that it's fully integrated to achieve the business results. You can walk to a store and buy a device to protect your network and follow the instructions and set it up and walk away. Will it do what it's supposed to do? Will it do what it's supposed to do within the budget that you expect it to do? Right? All of those things are considered when you do and when you approach it from an integration perspective. So we as an organization, we focus on telecom integration. So we deliver Wi-Fi designs, voice over IP platforms, security platforms, end-to-end network design and deployment of infrastructure. So, Stephen, I think we're going back to your question. What would we tell business owners?
Yeah.
So I would suggest to business owners, first of all, that we understand infrastructure and we respect it. And I as a business owner, I understand the pressures of just keeping the lights on and getting things working. But we also have to shift that mindset to understand that these lights won't stay on and these things wouldn't keep working unless the stuff that carries my data works and works properly.
Absolutely.
It's an end-to-end solution, guys. But traditionally, we focus on the stuff that we can see and control. until it breaks. That's when we take action. So first thing is respect the fact that your business, regardless of whether you own it or not, the infrastructure that is your business runs on some sort of telecom infrastructure. Dig deep. There is some sort of telecom infrastructure that supports your business operations. Know it, understand it, respect it. That's step one. Step two, whenever you have to embark on any sort of initiative, and in this case, the most common initiative is transformation. Approach transformation from a strategic level rather than a technology level. When you walk into digital transformation, thinking about the technology, you skew your decisions and shorten the thought process. And you end up with a solution, many times you do, but you end up with a solution that is short-sighted and may not touch on all the requirements or even all the considerations for risk and so on. So those are the two things I would recommend. Respect and understand infrastructure, and approach all infrastructure type projects, especially digital transformation, not as a technology project, but as a strategic project.
I love it, man. Listen, how much of this are you imparting to your daughter?
She knows a bit, at 10 years, she knows a bit. So she knows some terms. So daddy, what's the, how long does this take? Daddy, why haven't we gotten this? She understands how to run some commands and things like that. She's around. She likes to be involved. But I'm not too sure where she'll go yet. She wants to be a doctor sometimes. She wants to be a dancer sometimes. Yeah. But, she's around and she's involved.
That's the important piece. And just keep planting and watering the seeds, right?
Yes.
And giving her that exposure. That's fantastic. Sheldon, are you, we always, as we wrap our conversations up, our Blazer Nation loves to hear the resources of our featured guests. I'm wondering what books maybe you've read or you're reading that might help our Blazer Nation. They should probably add to their reading queue.
Yes, definitely. Good to Great by Jim Collins. Definitely.
Yes. I'm sure you and I have talked about that one.
That shifted. I mean, that's a total shift to what you learn in your MBA and so on, but it has value.
Yeah.
There's another one by Jim Collins and another author, Great by Choice.
Yes.
Right. I can't remember the author of this one, but the book is called Servant Leadership. Yes. Right. That speaks to how you approach things, and how you approach people. It's not, you should always approach people the way you want to be approached. Not because you run an organization, that means you can't get involved and you respect people less. Right. There's also Eat That Frog. The authors are escaping me right now.
No worries.
I struggle with time management a lot because I try to do so much, and Eat That Frog actually speaks to doing just that. The frog is normally the worst thing you have to do for the day. Do that first.
Right.
Get that out of the way. Right. So those are just some of the books, but I love to read. Everything else would be probably too technical, but I love to read.
There's one that everyone that heard me reading or listening, because I'm an audiobook junkie. So everything I do, I'm doing it, via audiobook while I'm walking or outdoors. But the next book I want to read following Good to Great is one called Small Giants. I've been hearing quite a bit about it.
Write that down.
So yeah, I just wrapped up Seth Godin's Tribes and really enjoyed that one as well.
And at the same, those morning frogs are not easy.
Yeah. Sheldon, actually, before I hit the last question here, again, I've been encouraging everybody check out Sheldon's website and follow him over on LinkedIn if you're not yet doing so. Is there any other way you want people to stay connected?
Well, our website, LinkedIn, our YouTube page, as in Blue Network's YouTube page as well. I also want to say, Stephen and Blazer Nation, that a lot of the things that we spoke about this morning, especially addressing the concern that business owners have right now, what do I need to implement? How do I make this transition? What infrastructure components do I need? We are having an event on June 25th that focuses on that. The event is entitled Infrastructure Solutions for Supporting the Transformation. Right? Advertising and registration will start on May the 15th. Right? It's a totally virtual event. We're going global with it. So I welcome all of you guys to register. Right? Stephen, I'll send back when the registration links become available, I'll send them back to you. Yeah. I also want to point Blazer Nation to a particular, and I left it in the chat, so I don't know if I could actually bring it up. A particular blog article that we wrote that speaks to some of the challenges that businesses are seeing right now, especially with DX and digital transformation and the approach, strategy versus technology. The article is entitled Digital Transformation, Technology versus Strategy. So probably if you could put that link up there, and reading the article, guys, would bring a sense of how we feel about this this thing that everybody is rushing to do now, digitally transform. Right? Yeah.
Love it. So as we break away from this conversation and we get into our Friday, what's one action that you want our Blazer Nation to put in their minds and work on that's going to help them to blaze their trail?
I would say there's something that I work hard at living by, which is you will never grow within your comfort zone. Growth never happens within your comfort zone. As entrepreneurs, there are many times it's going to be rough mentally, physically. I mean, you have to make decisions that many people will never make in this lifetime, right? But my advice will always be assess these situations using comfort level as one of the variables. Not everything that's uncomfortable means it's not good, right? When you look at it many times, the discomfort is you growing. So look at it positively, guys. Push forward and make your dream happen. Don't let anybody tell you that it cannot happen, guys. Blue Networks is a dream that my wife and I had about 13 years ago.
Wow.
And we're 10 years in, and we're building the best telecom integrator this side of the Caribbean. So make your dreams happen, guys. Don't let anybody stop you.
I love that, man. You've walked us through seeing a dream and bringing it to a vision and making it a reality, and you're living your legacy. And I acknowledge you for continuing to be the representation of what's possible for our next generation. So congrats on the success and what you've been able to accomplish. And you're now part of our Blazer. You are already a part of our Blazer Nation, but you're now in the elite group, right?
I appreciate that. Thank you, guys.
And Sheldon's always hanging with us, with our lives. So definitely connect with him, follow what he's doing. An amazing thought leader in his space, and appreciate having a good Caribbean brother on the show.
Yes,
so enjoy the weekend, my brother.
Same to you, and guys, everybody be safe, and thank you for having me, be a part of this wonderful experience and this wonderful community, guys.
Yes. Take care, guys.
All right.
Thanks for spending time with us today. If we aren't yet connected, let's keep the conversation going on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram. Now, we grow when you subscribe, share, and invite others to check us out. We believe that others who consume these stories will be moved to make significant changes that have generational impact for many others, both now and well into the future. Blazer Nation, go out.